What is good, sports fans? Welcome back. Or for those of you tuning in for the first time, welcome to episode 4 in the SportsbyFry YouTube world. Pretty big episode today. This might be the longest video that I do. I'm going to be talking about a ton of sport. The weekend's nearly here. March Madness is still well and truly alive. We've got the NBA playoff race that's it's starting to solidify, see which teams are the real deal, which ones are pretenders. Of course, I've got to talk about AFL. We're 2 games into the new season. That's pretty awesome. Got to talk about a few of the pieces that I wrote in the last couple of days. If you've missed any, feel free to check out SportsbyFry.com. I did my mock draft day yesterday for the NFL and the NBA, which were pretty dope. And I also wrote my Fantasy Friday and an article on Kawhi Leonard that are live on the site now. So make sure you check them out if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook to stay up to date with all the latest breaking news from the sports world. I'm going to start by talking about the NBA. So since I last touched base with the NBA, when was it? I think it was on one of my Tuesday episodes. I've been doing a lot of AFL stuff the last few days because the AFL season just got underway. But yeah, there's been a lot of things happening in the NBA, mainly revolving around Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs. But I'll touch on them when I look at the West. I'm going to start in the East. So out East, my boys, the Cavs, they got a massive win the other night over the Raptors. That was an awesome game. If you haven't watched it, go check out the highlights. The Raps scored like 79 points in the first half. Well, up by about 15. The most points that they've scored in a half in like franchise history or in like 20 years or something crazy. So a massive win for Cleveland. They didn't have a lot of their starting guys. Rodney Hood was out. Luckily they had Kevin Love back from injury and he had an awesome game. Tristan Thompson, Larry Nance, and of course Ty Lue, who's stepped away from the Cavs regarding health issues. So fingers crossed he can get his health in order and be back on the sideline for the Cavs. So assistant coach LeBron James doesn't have to do too much heavy lifting off the court. He can focus on the court antics. So that win, and with a couple of other results, actually locked up a playoff spot for the Cavs. So they're sitting 3rd right now in the East. After the last week that's transpired, their current playoff matchup would be the Wizards. The Wizards are sitting 6th, who they desperately need John Wall back. I'm not here for any of the talk in people saying that the Wizards are better without John Wall. Even if John Wall's not at full strength, you'd still rather have him than Satoransky and whoever else is trying to run the show for them. You'd rather have John Wall in uniform. So yeah, first round matchup right now would be the Cavs versus the Wizards, which is probably, as a Cavs fan, the ideal matchup that I'd want to see. I'm really worried about them going against a hot Victor Oladipo, although the Pacers don't really worry me, but the Sixers are actually sitting 4th right now. They've climbed all the way up into a top 4 seed. Like I touched on about a week ago, they have the cruisiest schedule remaining. They play a lot of the cellar dwellers and teams near the bottom. So the Sixers could end up with home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, which if you told me that at the start of the year, I would have said probably not. But, considering the talent level of Embiid and Simmons, it's, you can see it. You can see why they're where they are. The top 2, I don't think will move. Raptors have got the 1 seed. Boston's got 2. And then, the Cavs are in a little bit of a bunch with the Wizards and Pacers, but I think they'll hold out and stay 3rd. In the bottom 4, I think we should watch out for Miami. They look pretty impressive in the last few games. I watched the Miami-Denver game. They went to double OT a couple of nights ago, and the Heat looked really good. They didn't have Dwayne Wade in uniform, who can, add a little something. He won't be out averaging 25 points, but he'll give you a nice spark off the bench. Yeah, we should watch out for Miami. The Bucks are just... It'll be a fun first round matchup, whether they finish 8th, which they're currently slated to now, go up against Toronto, or they go up against Boston. I think they're probably only going to be here for one 6-game, 7-game series. So it'll be nice to watch Giannis do his thing, but they're not going any further. Transitioning out to the West, and of course, as you know, the Western playoff race right now is still bananas. Although it's starting to look very similar to the East. We've pretty much got the 8 teams locked in. I mean, Denver or the Clippers could go on a run and claim one of the spots. That's not out of the realm of possibility. They're still right within striking distance. But I think it would take, something pretty special for either of them to leapfrog into the 8 and knock out the likes of Utah or Minnesota or whoever else is languishing down there. But yeah, there's only 1.5 games splitting the 4th seed and the 8th seed. So there's a lot of shuffling that's still to be done out west. San Antonio has been firing lately. They've won 5 in a row, even without Kawhi, who, is coming back and then he's not, and then his quad's still not right, and now his teammates are, imploring him to come back. They really need him, and Kawhi's saying he can't. So it's a weird situation in San Antonio, but Pop's got them, galvanised. They've won 5 in a row. They're pushing up. I think they're in the 6th seed right now. So, they're on track to... I thought for a while they were going to miss the playoffs, especially with Kawhi sidelined. But yeah, they look like they proved me wrong and proved a lot of others wrong. And they should... I don't think they can get through the first round, but at the moment, if they match up against like your Portland or an OKC, there's no reason why the Spurs couldn't advance into round 2 and lock horns with Golden State or Houston. That'd be, really interesting to see. It's tough to kind of look at some potential matchups out west because there's still so much movement. I think Denver plays Minnesota twice, and currently Denver and Minnesota are just split by 2 games. So, if Denver wins both of them, that dramatically changes the outlook of the playoff picture. Utah has been almost unstoppable since they got back Rudy Gobert, but again, they've got a few tough games coming up. They play Golden State on the weekend, so yeah, it's still anyone's game as to guess how the West seedings are going to pan out, but pretty interesting. I do like that the race for all the seeds and the spot to try and lock up home court advantage at the 3rd or 4th spot's still a bit wide open. I think Portland's pretty much got a top 4 spot locked up now. Their recent games have kind of put a bit of a cushion between them and the rest of the field, so they should get there. But yeah, OKC, the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, Utah, like anyone else could really end in that 4th spot. It's pretty awesome. Speaking of jumbling between some seedings, the bottom 7 or 8 teams that are in Tankapalooza trying to get the number 1 pick for the upcoming NBA draft are still all really tight as well. They're only separated by a handful of games. In fact, the bottom 7 teams are only separated by 4.5 games at the moment, from your league worst Suns and Memphis Grizzlies down to the Kings and the Nets. Yeah, it's still really tight. So that actually transitions perfectly into some of the pieces that I did last week. So for my NBA mock draft that I did, the Suns had pick number 1, and I said that they'd be taking DeAndre Ayton. I think that even though there's a couple of worries about his defensive ability, he looks like an absolute animal. He looks pretty much like David Robinson. That is who he reminds me of. It might be a big call. A lot of people are saying he looks like Patrick Ewing, I guess, which are, 2 Hall of Famers, a pretty elite company to be compared to. But yeah, he looked like a man amongst boys in college, and I think that, yeah, he's an absolute game changer. And if I had the number 1 pick, that's who I'd take. I can understand why a GM would probably want to go for Luka Doncic as well, or Doncic. He's a Slovenian who's playing for Real Madrid out in the Euro Leagues, who looks like some have even compared him to like a white Magic Johnson, like his ability to just create passes like a freak of nature. He's about 6'7", so he looks like a European version of Magic with his ability to pass the ball and score in a variety of ways. So he's another person who's in the mix for the first overall pick that, if they end up, whoever gets pick number 1, if they take Ayton or Doncic, then I can totally understand why. That's who I had going first or at the top of the chain in my mock draft. Where the Cavs are picking, about 6th or 7th. The order keeps changing every day. I can't even remember where the Cavs were when I wrote the article. I think from memory they were 7th. I said they'd be getting Trae Young. His stocks slid a little bit after Oklahoma kind of went into the toilet in the second half of the year. But yeah, he's still a 20, 25 point per game scorer in the league, I think. He reminds me, obviously, like everyone says, a bit of Steph Curry, but his game's a little bit different to Steph Curry's. From a shooting perspective, a lot of people are comparing him to Curry because he has a quick release, but he kind of reminds me a bit of like a Lillard or a Kemba Walker. Like he, is all about getting buckets. He can get you, 10 assists a game, but yeah, he can score in such a variety of ways. He's not a great finisher at the rim, so if he stacks on some muscle in a few years, then, he could really be a dangerous player in the league. So from the NBA mock draft to the NFL mock draft, just quickly touching on that, I had the Cleveland Browns taking Sam Darnold with the first pick. In a couple of pieces that I wrote, or a couple of mock drafts that I wrote previously, I said I'm not sold on any of the quarterbacks as a bona fide number 1 player, someone you must grab. But after the moves that the Cavs have made, I think adding Darnold, to learn from Tyrod Taylor, or at least, there's no pressure for Darnold to deliver right away. That gives him a perfect situation. Jarvis Landry, Corey Coleman, and Josh Gordon are pretty good receivers, so they give someone Darnold to throw. They give someone for Darnold to throw to. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. They could go Saquon Barkley at pick number 1, but in my mock draft, I actually have them getting him at 4 anyway. The Jets traded up to number 3. They probably did that to take a quarterback, who I think will be Josh Allen or probably Baker Mayfield. That's, if I was a betting man, that's who I'd put my money on. And then I had the Giants taking Josh Rosen from UCLA at pick 2. New York traded away Jason Paul-Pierre a couple of days ago, who's a massive defensive end for them. So they could take Bradley Chubb, who's meant to be a great defensive end prospect, but I think they'll go quarterback and look for a successor to Eli. So with the top 3 picks being quarterbacks, the Browns get their wish and get Saquon Barkley at pick 4. I won't go into any more depth about those mock drafts that I wrote. You can read all about them on SportsbyFry.com. Please make sure you check them out. I'm going to transition into a bit of March Madness, and Madness really does encapsulate exactly what's going on in the tournament this year. It's pretty bonkers. So like I touched on at the lead-off, the first part of the Sweet 16 kicked off last night, and we saw just, once again, some dramatic games, some real close finishes, and some pretty epic results, a lot of the underdogs getting up. So believe it or not, a 9th seed and an 11th seed are playing for a spot in the Final 4 in the South region. It's awesome. I love, like I said previously, and I'll keep saying it again, I love March Madness. Just that win or go home mentality. One winner advances. It leads to some pretty awesome and just crazy results. So yeah, a 9th and 11th seed are playing after Kentucky got knocked off by Kansas State, and the 11th seed Loyola Chicago took care of Nevada. The upsets and crazy results didn't stop there. Michigan took care of business against Texas A&M, like everyone kind of expected them to. But yeah, another big dog in Gonzaga went down in the other game to the Florida State Seminoles. So yeah, a 9th seed and a 3rd seed are playing for a spot in the Final 4 in the West region. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second batch of the Sweet 16 games we've got tonight. The likes of Clemson and Kansas are playing. Duke and Syracuse should be awesome. West Virginia, I really, really want to see them get the win against Nova. So yeah, the tournament's not failing to deliver. So if you've missed out on the early craziness and you're only just tuning in, you're not too late. So make sure that you follow the rest of March Madness from here on out, because it's pretty much anyone's game and anyone's guess as to what the hell is going to happen in the rest of this tournament. Even though we didn't get to see some of the big matchups that I would have liked, Michigan State versus Duke or Arizona and Kentucky, seeing a lot of those draft prospects go head-to-head, I'd almost rather see like these crazy runs by lower seeds. I mean, everyone can get behind an underdog and cheer for an underdog. So seeing someone like Loyola Chicago, an 11th seed, who, like on my first video, I pronounced their name wrong or, said not to worry about them because they won't be here. They've just shocked the nation and blown everyone's expectations out of the water. So yeah, I'm all for these lower seeds and, your double-digit seeds going on big runs. Everyone loves cheering for, the underdog, like I said. So even though we're, missing out on seeing the likes of Trae Young or DeAndre Ayton or, other prominent college players go on these big runs, there's still a few names out there, but yeah, I'm all for these lower seeds making a real run. And who knows, imagine if we get to the Final 4 and Florida State are there, Loyola Chicago are there, Clemson or someone else is there. It'd make for a pretty memorable year, that's for sure. While I was asleep, the Crows and Bombers, well, they didn't officially kick off AFL action. That honour belongs to the Tigers and Carlton from Thursday night. But yeah, Friday night footy always feels like the first game of the year. Carlton and Richmond seems like a bit of a novelty after they've been doing it for so many years now. So yeah, the Dons and Crows kicked off Friday night footy. Pretty awesome game. Adelaide found themselves up about 20 with about 15 minutes left in the match clock, and then yeah, Bombers just stormed home and took out a pretty famous win, a real uplifting win for the Dons supporters. A lot of their guys looked pretty good. Joey Danaher looked pretty unstoppable. I'm not ready to draw a line through Adelaide or pump up Essendon for the win, though. I mean, the Crows were playing away from home. They were missing key guys like Tex, Tommy Lynch. Brad Crouch got injured, so he was missing. So, I'm not, writing the Bombers' name on the Premiership Cup just yet. It's a massive win for them, but, I can almost guarantee you can't tell me who Adelaide played in the first round last year or who Richmond beat. So, they would have beat Carlton, classic. But yeah, you know what I mean? Let's not overreact to just one game of footy. In a month or so, if the Dons are sitting 4-0 and Joey Danaher's kicked 20 or 30 goals, then I might change what I said. But yeah, in the preseason, I said I wasn't a believer of Essendon, and I'm going to stick to that belief for now anyway. The Tigers and Carlton, like I said, played Thursday night. Richmond looked pretty sluggish in this game. The Blues gave them a bit of a scare, which could be a good sign for Carlton fans. This might be the year that, they stop languishing in the bottom 5 or 6 and start to make it look like they're going to compete for a finals berth. Charlie Curnow looks like an absolute future star. He kicked 5 for the Blue Baggers, which was nice. I'm sure lots of Carlton fans would be happy to see him up and about. Dustin Martin looked at his Brownlow best. I think, I tipped Paddy Dangerfield for the Brownlow this year, but Dusty's going to be hard to stop again in 2018. He looks invincible. 2 games are done. There's still 7 left, including my boys, the Freo Dockers, travelling to Adelaide to take on Port. I don't think there's a way that Freo can win this game. It would be nice. I think if we're going to win this game, and it'll probably be a similar strategy for most of the games this year, the Dockers are in contention for. It can't be a game, that's super free-flowing and high-scoring. We do have a bit of pace about our game, but we just can't kick a massive score. So, if Ross Lyon can adopt and bring back that, defense-first strategy when, the Dockers were making the Grandy, and we, turn into one of the best defensive teams in the comp, that might win us a few more games, but we're still a few years away and a few more games into these kids and a few pieces away from really pushing our way up the ladder. So when we played Port early last year, I think it was in round 2 or 3, we lost by about 90 points. So fingers crossed it won't get that ugly, but if it does, then it wouldn't surprise me. Port Power look like they're primed for a real serious run at the flag this year, so I'm sure they'd like to kick off their year in a good way, which probably doesn't mean the best of results from a Fremantle Dockers perspective. Most of the analysis and the stuff that's occurred in the last, week or so, I've talked about now, the basketball, AFL. So let's look ahead to what's happening this weekend. Again, March Madness continues, which should be pretty epic. Tonight, the second round of the Sweet 16, or second half of the Sweet 16, gets underway. And then over the weekend, the Elite 8 is played to determine who'll be in the Final 4. If I was a betting man, out of the South region, I have not. You'd probably pick Loyola Chicago over Kansas State, but Kansas State have beat some more impressive opponents, but they beat a 16. So the South region, honestly, you can flip a coin to determine who'll win that one. But it should be a pretty close game, and whoever wins, it will be, pretty historic to see a 9 or an 11 seed in the Final 4. So don't miss that one. That could turn into an epic. I think Michigan will beat Florida State. FSU's had some good wins on their run through to the Elite 8, but yeah, Michigan is probably one of the best picks to win it all from here. So I've got the Wolverines advancing to the Final 4. Out in the Midwest, I think Duke are probably the favourites to get there. Cuse have looked impressive though. They've gone from the first 4 to the Sweet 16. So, never say never. Don't count out Coach Boeheim and that elite zone defence. They've got some cool pieces, but I think Duke will probably beat whoever wins the Clemson-Kansas matchup. So they're probably another Final 4 contender. And the East region, they've actually dodged a lot of the upsets. That's been pretty vanilla. I think the 4th seed in Wichita State was the only real big name that's gone down so far. So Villanova looks like the favourite, almost to win it all from here. But Purdue, Texas Tech, even West Virginia, considering what else has transpired this tournament, if one of them make the Final 4, it wouldn't surprise me. Although, for argument's sake, I'm siding with Nova. I think Nova versus West Virginia, although it'll be a bit of a slugfest and a defensive matchup, will be the best game this weekend. So make sure you tune into that one. It could be Javon Carter's last game for the Mountaineers, which would be a bit of a shame. I've loved him at West Virginia. He's one of my favourite players to watch. So, they could cause an upset. Don't see it happening, though. Probably Nova over Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech will beat out Purdue for a spot in the Elite 8, and then Villanova will claim that Final 4 berth. In the NBA, there's some massive games on tonight. Denver faces Washington in pretty much a season-defining game. If they can win that game, Then they travel to Toronto to play the Raps in what will probably be another season-defining game. But beating Washington in Washington would be massive for the Nuggets' confidence. And to keep them in touch with the rest of the top 8, I think they have to get that win. And I think they probably will. Washington is still without John Wall. So I think the Nuggets will get it up tonight. Miami also plays in OKC tonight. That should be another fantastic game. Miami plays the Pacers over the weekend as well, which could go a long way into determining the tiebreaker and the seeding out in the East Conference. And then the last, probably best game in the NBA, Utah plays the Warriors, like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, if Utah can win that game, then who knows? They might be able to even push up for a 4 seed. But I think Steph Curry's back for the Warriors, even though Draymond, Clay, and Durant are still out. I think the Dub Nation boys are probably too good to see the Jazz get a win over them. In the AFL, my pick for the rest of the round is to watch the Giants and Bulldogs game. I had the Dogs tipped as a finals team in 2018, and the last couple of times the Giants and Western Bulldogs have played each other, both matches have been pretty interesting. I think it was a preliminary where the Dogs got into the Grandy a couple of years ago, and they played last year in another epic, so a close match. So yeah, don't miss that one, that'll be a ripper. Finally, I just want to give a couple of shout-outs over the past couple of days. A couple of athletes have stood out to me, and that they deserve a little bit of credit, extra credit I should say. So Dwight Howard, just quietly, he's been having an awesome year. He's pretty much averaging the same numbers as his career. I think he's shooting a little bit better from the field, averaging around two blocks a game, 12 boards, 16, 17 points. No one's giving him enough credit. He's having an awesome, awesome season, as was illustrated when he became the second bloke since Moses in 1985 to have 30 points and 30 rebounds. Kevin Love did it in 2010. So yeah, Dwight's the first bloke to do that in 8 years and only the second bloke to do it in the last 30 or 40. So kudos to Dwight Howard. Keep doing what you're doing. Also, Matty Crouch. I had him in my AFL fantasy team all pre-season. He was locked, set and forget. I was really happy and stoked to have him in my team until about 24 hours before final lockout. I traded him out for Josh Kelly, who will probably still do really good for the Giants, and I'm not upset in having Josh Kelly in my team, but Crouch had 41 touches against Essendon and looked like he will, probably average 110, 115. So kind of kicking myself for not keeping Crouch and sticking to my guns, but good job, Matty. Nice showing on round 1. And it is currently the 23rd of March in Toronto, so happy birthday to Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Pretty rare that those two guys, two Boston stars, celebrate their birthday on the same day, which is cool though. So happy birthday to those boys, and to Jason Kidd, who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame or elected in the Hall of Fame later this year, and is, one of the best point guards to ever play in the NBA. So happy birthday, boys. And that pretty much wraps up another SportsbyFry video. So I'm going to try and pump this video out so that for those people in Australia, you'll be waking up on Saturday morning and you'll be able to see this video before another awesome, like I said, weekend of sport gets underway. I really want to get into doing a Q&A video. So obviously I'm going to need to build up a bit more of a following, but if you've got any questions, anything really to do with the sporting world, I want to try and start a segment where I do that at the end of each episode. So if you've got any questions, feel free to comment them below. I'll also put all my social media handles and the SportsbyFry website in the description below. Make sure that you leave a rating, subscribe to the channel. Sunday sit-down's coming up, so I'm going to do that with Jake this weekend, and then I'm not too sure when my next video will be after that. Probably around halfway through next week, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday area. I'll dissect what's actually happened since this video, and then wrap up round 1, and by then we'll have a bit more of an idea about March Madness and the NBA playoff seedings as well. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, peace.